You've been saying I'm waiting on God for about 2 years now, and lately you've started to wonder if that's even true. Same apartment, same job you outgrew a long time ago. Same prayer, worded a little differently. And the honest part, the part you don't say out loud, is that nothing has moved on the outside, and nothing has changed on the inside either. And the scary thought isn't that God is silent. It's the quiet suspicion that nothing is happening because nobody is doing anything, including you. So tonight, 5 signs you might be just waiting instead of waiting on God. But before the first one, I need to say something, because this subject gets handled badly by Christians. Not every delay is your fault. Some of you are in a genuine wait that has nothing to do with disobedience. Joseph interpreted a dream in prison, asked one man to remember him, and that man forgot him for 2 more years. That wasn't Joseph's sin, that was just time. And Proverbs says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. God put that sentence in his own book. So if you're worn down, that's not unbelief. That's a normal human being in a long season. This is also not a video telling you to hustle. God is not withholding things until you optimize your morning routine. There are 2 ways to fail a waiting season. One is grabbing. Saul got tired of waiting for Samuel, offered the sacrifice himself, and lost a kingdom over it. The other way is going numb. And almost nobody preaches about that one because it looks so much like patience. So let's talk about the second one. 1. You're waiting for clarity, but you've already been given a next step. You're asking God for the whole map. He handed you one instruction, months ago, and you've been praying about it ever since instead of doing it. Psalm 37 is the famous wait passage. Be still before the Lord and wait patiently for him. But read a few verses earlier in the same psalm, and it says, trust in the Lord and do good. Those sit side by side. Do good is not the opposite of waiting. It's what waiting is made of. Ecclesiastes says, whoever watches the wind will never sow, and whoever studies the clouds will never reap. There is always one more condition that isn't right yet. There's always a reason this month isn't the month. So here's the question. What's the last thing you knew clearly was right and haven't done? Not the big mystery, the thing you already know. Most of us aren't confused, we're stalling, and we've learned to call it discernment. 2. Your waiting has no post. Psalm 130 says, I wait for the Lord, my soul waits, more than watchmen wait for the morning. Watchman. A watchman is waiting, but he's standing up, awake, on a wall, at an assignment. He can't make the sun rise. He also isn't asleep. And look at the one time Jesus explicitly told people to wait. He told the disciples to stay in Jerusalem until the promise came. So what did they do with that wait? They went upstairs and devoted themselves to prayer, together, for 10 days, and handled the business that needed handling. Nobody sat in a chair watching the door. Anna is the same picture. Decades in the temple, worshiping, fasting, praying night and day. That's a woman waiting on God. And it was the loudest quiet season in the Bible. Now hear me carefully, because I'm not asking you to perform. If you're too tired to pray in paragraphs, pray in sentences. Tired prayer counts. But if you haven't actually talked to God about this in 4 months, that's not waiting. That's drifting, and there's a real difference between the two. 3. Call it waiting if you want, but underneath, it's fear. Jesus told a story about 3 servants given money before their master left. 2 invested, the third buried his, and when he explained himself, he didn't say, I was lazy. He said, I was afraid. That's the one that gets us. He wasn't reckless, he was careful. He protected what he had, and it cost him everything. Fear almost never introduces itself as fear. It gets promoted to wisdom. It sounds like, I want to be sure. It sounds like, I don't have peace about it yet. Meanwhile, the application never goes out. The conversation never happens. The apology stays unsaid. The appointment never gets booked. The thing God put in you stays buried where nobody can criticize it. Here's a test that helps me. Peace from God survives a decision. Fear needs a permanent postponement. If every option somehow requires more time and the deadline keeps moving, that's usually not the spirit being cautious. That's you being scared, which is understandable, and which God can handle if you'll name it honestly. 4. You've stopped preparing for the thing you're asking for. David was anointed king and then went back to the sheep. And out there, where nobody was watching and there was no audience and no ceremony, he killed a lion and a bear. That's where the man who faced Goliath was built, in obscurity on a normal Tuesday. Joseph ran a prison before he ran a nation. He kept being excellent in a place he did not deserve to be. And Jesus told the story of 10 women waiting for a wedding. All 10 waited, all 10 fell asleep. The only difference was 5 had brought oil and 5 hadn't. The waiting wasn't the variable, the readiness was, and you can't buy oil at midnight. So let me ask it plainly. If what you've been praying for showed up next Monday, would you be ready for it? The marriage, the job, the ministry, the child, the open door? Is there a skill you'd need, a debt you'd need to be free of, a habit that would sabotage it, a wound you should be getting help for right now? And don't turn this into earning. Preparation isn't payment. Oil isn't a purchase price. It's just being ready when the door opens. 5. Waiting has quietly become your identity. There's a man in John's Gospel who had been sick for 38 years, lying by a pool where people believed healing happened. Jesus walks up and asks him what sounds like an insulting question. Do you want to be healed? And the man doesn't say yes. He explains the system. He talks about the water and how somebody always gets there before him. I don't think Jesus was mocking him. I think he was asking the truest question in the passage. Because after 38 years, that pool wasn't just where he was suffering. It was where he belonged. It was his spot, his story, his explanation for everything. Healing would have cost him all of it. Some of us are there. The waiting has become safe. As long as I'm waiting, I can't fail. Nobody can reject me. Nothing can prove I heard God wrong. And sometimes the season is already over and nobody sent to notice. God said to Israel, "You have stayed long enough at this mountain. Turn and go." That mountain was where he met them. It was holy ground, and he still told them to leave. Here's the diagnostic. Are you still praying about this, or have you started just telling the story of it? When something moves from your prayers into your personality, that's worth looking at. So what does faithful waiting actually look like? James says, look at the farmer. He waits for the harvest and he's patient, and it is entirely out of his control. But nobody would ever describe a farmer's waiting season as doing nothing. He plants, he waters, he works ground he can't make grow, and he does not stand in the field yelling at seeds. That's it. That's the whole balance. Hands open about the outcome, feet moving in the one direction you already have. Zechariah asks, who dares despise the day of small things? Small things are what God has actually given most of us today. The class, the one honest conversation, the savings account with almost nothing in it, faithfulness in a job that isn't the dream. And David wrote, I waited patiently for the Lord, and he heard me, and he lifted me out of the pit and put a new song in my mouth. Notice he never tells us how long the pit lasted. He only tells us who came. I don't know your timeline. Nobody who tells you they do is being honest with you. But you probably know your next step. You've known it for a while. So comment it. 3 words or less. Not the dream, the step. Send the email. Call the counselor. Say the thing. Show up Sunday. And then go do it today, while it's still small. Because waiting on God does not mean refusing the next faithful step until he forces you to move.